Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bonjour. My name is Eric Chapuis, Business Advisor here at the World Trade Center in Winnipeg. I would like to begin today's webinar with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the land of Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the traditional and ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Ininu, Denisolune, and Dakota Oyate nations. We acknowledge that we are also on the homeland of the Red River Métis and that northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. The World Trade Center Winnipeg team respects the treaties that were made on these territories and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present throughout our nation. Thank you for joining our webinar Supply Chain 101, which due to unforeseen circumstances will be presented by Reid. Before we begin, I want to share a few housekeeping information. Please send all webinar questions directly to the chat box at the top of your screen, and Rick will try to answer as many questions as he can during the session, as well as the Q&A session at the end of the session. For all logistical questions, please send them directly to the chat box and I will answer your question as soon as possible. You will also receive a PDF copy and the recording of this presentation within the next week. All right, let's start this webinar. I would like to introduce you to Reid. Rick is the CEO of Supply Chain Manitoba and Supply Chain Canada, bringing over 25 years of leadership experience in the supply chain and logistics sector. He holds the Supply Chain Management Professional designation, and his expertise spans supply chain strategy, risk management, and digital transformation, making him a sought-after speaker and throughout leader. Rick is passionate about fostering collaboration between businesses, government, and educational institutions to keep Canada at the forefront of global supply chain trends. All right, Rick, let's start this webinar. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As I said, I'm the fill-in. Aaron Lubinsky wasn't able to attend, but I'm very happy to be here, and I always enjoy talking about supply chain management. There we go. So Supply Chain Manitoba, Supply Chain Canada, we're intertwined. The Manitoba Institute of Supply Chain Canada is part of the largest supply chain association in Canada. We've been around here in Manitoba for about 96 years. In that time, we've been the leading source of training and support for supply chain professionals and businesses in Manitoba. Supply Chain Manitoba is relatively new to our association. It represents our participation in the Provincial Sector Council Program for Transportation and Distribution, whose aim is to help ensure that there is a trained workforce available for employers to meet their needs in transportation and supply chain. We're going to talk a little bit about generalities, but this presentation is good whether you're somebody who's looking at a career and trying to understand what supply chain careers may look like, but also that business owner who's just in a startup or in those early years of trying to make a go of it, to understand how supply chain can help improve your business, can help improve the odds of success, can improve your competitiveness, and of course, your profitability. What we do is we deliver training and development, as I said. We promote careers in transportation, distribution, and supply chain, and we're always involved with emerging technologies, that help drive innovation and more productivity within your organizations. So what is a supply chain? A lot of people, when you hear it, they hear the word, but they're not entirely sure. But it's literally, a chain of events and handoffs of responsibility from point of origin to point of consumption. As I said here, it's an interconnected web, which is true. It can involve literally hundreds of organizations and people, to just produce the simplest of products. And the whole key of supply chain is to make sure you have the right products in the right place, in the right time, at the right price, quantity, etc. Because if you don't, then the system breaks down. We saw evidence of this when you look back at, COVID, and you look at how many companies had trouble either demand went through the roof, whether it be toilet paper or disinfectants, or whether demand cratered because nobody was buying anything. You had many, many companies that were unable to adjust to that situation. They were unable to scale up, or they were unable to scale down fast enough in order to avoid extra costs and issues. And that's indicative of a supply chain that's out of control. And that's the key when you're looking at supply chain 101, whether you're a business owner, whether you're working for somebody, or you're looking to get into a career. It's about how do I bring predictability and consistency to my operations. Supply chain is how things get done. It doesn't matter whether or not you're making buses like New Flyer, whether you're making airplanes like Boeing, whether you're producing this webinar. It's a supply chain. And if your supply chain is not effective, if it is not efficient, if it is not capable of delivering on that, you're not going to deliver that promise to your customers. Webinars don't get delivered, buses don't get delivered, planes don't get delivered. And if those don't get delivered, then you and your company aren't getting paid and it all starts to fall apart. So this is a representation of what would be a simple supply chain. And let's say you're the distributor, here in this diagram right here, your supply chain is going to go to your tier 1 suppliers. Tier 1 are those organizations, so suppliers that you immediately talk to, right? And average companies anywhere from 100 to 120, most organizations. Of those, there's probably about 5 or 6 that are strategically critical to the success of your business. So you have these relationships, these 100 to 120 relationships, and you rely on them to help your business succeed so that you can turn around and send your goods or services out to your customers. It's how you make money. And if you don't manage those people well, if you don't choose them well, what's going to happen is inefficiencies are going to creep in. Higher costs are going to creep in. Lack of scalability is going to creep in. Flexibility is not going to be there because of who you choose as your partners. And this is what ends up driving whether or not your business can be a success. But it doesn't stop at tier 1. It also goes over to tier 2. So this is your suppliers. And so each of those, again, using that number, you deal with about 100 to 120, but each of them deals with 100 to 120 people as well. And it's going to have a portion of them are going to be strategically critical to their success. And then it's going to move up one more to tier 3. And it's the same thing happens. And so exponentially, there's a whole bunch of people that play a role in whether your company is successful. And that's what supply chain's about. A chain of events and handoffs and responsibility, just like the diagram shows, that your job to manage that supply chain is to find out what's the most efficient and economical way for me to get goods from the point of origin to the point of consumption. Because if I can do that cheaper, faster, and more consistently than my competitors, I have a competitive advantage. And a competitive advantage in this business environment, especially with a more global environment where you have people, you're not just competing with somebody down the street from you, you're competing with people around the world, is critical. You need to have that. And companies that are very good at it are very successful and profitable. You notice on the diagram something else that's often missed in supply chains, and that's the flow of information. Information needs to flow both ways. And as somebody who manages a supply chain, you have to make sure that that flow of information is not inhibited and it's getting to the right people. You need to understand, what are customers telling you? What is demand telling you that customers want? The supply chains are all about meeting the demand of the customers. Everything you do should be focused on that customer. So the question is, they're going to say, hey, this is the demand. I want this. I want this features. I want a lower price. I want better quality. Whatever it is that you're demanding, that has to flow up, not just to your organization, but to all the organizations that are in your supply chain, your tier 1, 2, and 3, because you need them making decisions that are focused on what the customer wants. Because if they're doing something that the customer doesn't want, customers aren't going to spend dollars with you. They're going to vote with their dollars and go somewhere else where somebody else is. So for your people in your supply chain to make decisions that help you sell more You need to have a flow of information that has their demand flowing up. But conversely, innovation, change, improvements, those things are all happening at varying degrees throughout your supply chain. You need to know what's happening. You need to know, hey, look, this new technique is allowing us to produce these goods faster, less expensive, and more consistently. Oh, so that I can adjust my pricing here to maybe make myself more competitive. Or somebody might say, you know what, we're going to have real trouble getting this raw material and we're going to have delays. I'm not going to be able to supply this for a little bit, so that I have to look for another source so that I can go manage the expectations of my customers by sharing that with the sales teams and sharing that with marketing, so that we're not over promising and under delivering because somebody in our supply chain can no longer provide at the same level that they've traditionally done. So information is critical and it has to flow both ways. And people need to understand what's going on so they can make the best decision possible. And that's where your role comes in. Whether you're an entrepreneur who's running your business, whether you're the supply chain professional that person is hired to manage their supply chain, whether you're the entry level buyer that works for somebody. The more information is key. It's what you don't know is what's going to hurt you. And information flow in supply chains is just as important as the flow of goods. Now, there's generally 4 primary roles. Now, supply chain involves lots of things. There's lots of steps, but we can generally break it down into 4 primary roles, and they include sourcing, procurement, transportation, and warehousing. You find it, you buy it, you move it, you store it. That's the 4 primary roles. Now, when you're looking at that saying, okay, well, that makes sense. The key roles start with, and I'm going to talk a little bit later when I get into circular economy, the biggest place where you can have the most impact in your supply chain to help make it more competitive, more profitable, more resilient are in the first 2 steps, in the sourcing and procurement functions. Where am I buying? What am I buying? Who am I buying it from? Doing your work there to choose better partners or better sources is going to help your organization be more successful, right? So going out and having a mechanism where you actually can go out and you can look for these, sources of supply that improve aspects of your business is a key function. And then the procurement function, actually going and executing on what you found, is critical. Transportation is generally a cost. You want to manage that effectively. And there's techniques that you can do for that, but it's generally an expense you want to try to minimize as best you can. Warehousing is the same. As we learned through COVID, the whole strategy of just in time and trying to lean out inventory came back and bit a lot of people in the butt. You had a situation where you had demands that were taking off and nobody had any inventory anywhere throughout that supply chain to manage it. And when you cut capacity within the system because they had the shutdowns at 50%, all of a sudden you had demand that was skyrocketing. You had capacity that got cut in half and no inventory anywhere in between to help deal with it. Hence why it was so hard to get so many products during COVID. So again, touching a little bit deeper though, as I said, you have the 4 primary roles: sourcing, procurement, transportation, warehousing. But you start digging in, and supply chain management is an integrating function within an organization. It's, as I said before, it's how things get done. And part of that is the management of information. Part of that is the flow of goods, but part of it is integrating the disciplines, not only within the 4 walls of your organization, but with those outside suppliers and entities. When you take a look at, again, and these are some of the things that are involved in it: procurement, as you said, manufacturing, inventory management, demand planning. These are all aspects that fit into it. But finance is supported by supply chain because they expect somebody, let me take a step back. The largest, or perhaps the second largest expenditure in any organization is your supply chain. And if it's not supply chain, it's labor. supply chain is responsible for spending the resources, cash of an organization. And the goal is to get the maximum value you can from that. So finance is looking for supply chain to spend money wisely and maximize value that you're getting back. Operations, on the other hand, is saying, look, you know, so finance wants you to spend less. They want you to buy the cheapest thing, but we need this model that's more expensive because this model is better quality. This model is easier to input into, is better to integrate into our operations. We don't have to do this extra work, which costs us time, money, and productivity. So spending more on this is there. Meanwhile, marketing is saying, hey, look, we want to know the latest, greatest, what's going on. What's the latest version that's coming out? We want to go out and talk about it. We want to push it. Sales is saying, do we have it available? We have to have stuff available. If it's not available, I can't sell it. So you start getting into this where at the very center of that, supply chain's job is to balance the needs of all these disciplines within an organization to try to make sure that money's spent well, that the quality of the product's there to help, that you don't screw up operations, that it's there on time. The warehouse guys get it on time in a manner that makes it easy for them to get it out to the production line. That marketing is getting information on products so they can put them up with better messaging. That sales knows that they can go out and sell a whole bunch with confidence that the supply chain is going to be able to deliver on it. So that integrating factor often gets lost and people don't realize the importance of it. It's often described as servant leadership. You're responsible for this. You have the authority for this. But the point is, supply chain is all about helping others succeed. If I can help finance achieve its goals, while at the same time helping ops and marketing and this and satisfying the customer, the company succeeds. And that's what really it's all about, is how do I help the company succeed by helping the different disciplines succeed by ensuring the efficient and economical flow of goods and information within that company? And how do I integrate those outside sources, those suppliers, those tier one suppliers? How do I bring them into the mix? And how do I choose well so their systems integrate seamlessly with ours so that I don't have any inefficiencies? I don't have any additional costs. How they actually help me be better than just sending me stuff. And it's the same with customers, right? Whether it be directly or through wholesalers. How do I integrate better with them to find efficiencies to meet their needs in the most economical and efficient way possible? It's a big task, and I really call it, at the end of the day, it's really collaborative problem solving. Because as I said, it's literally a chain of events. And you saw that diagram I showed that shows all the handoffs and the chain of events. It could be simple where that showed, where you are in an overall supply chain of suppliers. It could be within your four walls of what happens when raw material come into one door, it goes through the process, and then it gets shipped out as a complete product. It could represent that as well. So the question is, how do you take all those steps, and how do I identify where the weak link is? And then I go to that weak link and I deal with the people that are involved. And then we get together and we look at it. We root cause the problem. We solve the problem. We deal with it. And as soon as I fix the weak link, something else becomes a weak link and it starts all over again. And then I'm analyzing something else, and I'm bringing people together and collaboratively come up with a solution. And that may include inside your four walls, might include suppliers, might include customers. But it's collaborative problem solving on a continuous basis with the goal of finding the most efficient and economical way, profitable way, if you want to call it, to deliver goods and services to customers and meet their needs. Because the more you can do that, the more they're going to vote with their dollars and spend them with you. Supply chains, this is just kind of a general thing. This comes from Supply Chain Canada, but it talks about, the impact of supply chains and what it does. And you look at it, there is about 900,000 people employed in supply chain management in Canada. That's everything from warehouse people to truck drivers to vice presidents. $1 trillion worth of goods moved. $1 trillion every year in goods moved. That might be domestically, it might be, to the States, it might be internationally. We do lots here in Manitoba internationally that people don't realize. Drone shipments is something that are starting to go for first mile, last mile, that are really starting to come in. And how you integrate something like that into your company is going to be a question you're going to have to take a look at, whether you're the principal owner or whether you're somebody that's working there. And 66 billion contributed to the national GDP. As I said, this is how economies move. It's how things get done. And the problem is with many organizations is they don't give it the full attention that they should. Well, I can issue a PO. It's not just the PO. It's about all things around what to buy, when to buy, who to buy from, the analysis, what ifs, taking a look at the risks, having plan Bs. There's a lot more to it than just simply here's the PO. Because I mean, there's lots of entrepreneurs, think, I can do that. I can negotiate. I know I can best represent my company. But the problem is, as your company grows, you can't do everything. And it's evidenced by as you grow, they hire a CFO to look after the finances. They hire a marketing person to do media. They hire a salesperson to go and handle sales. And they have somebody on an operations floor that manages processes. But what they don't often do is they don't often put somebody in charge of the largest or second largest expenditure in their company, their supply chains. It's kind of set it and forget it. And that's when companies run into trouble, is that they're not efficient, they're not profitable, they're not scalable, all those things I talked about. And when the unexpected happens, they get into trouble. And that's why it's important to have somebody that manages your supply chain, that focuses on it, that can be on it day to day, can make those decisions, can be looking for opportunities to either reduce costs, improve efficiencies, avoid risks, or recover costs, right? Because all of it contributes. High demands for those that are on this that are maybe thinking about careers. There are lots of high demand opportunities right now if you want to get into supply chain management. This is a list of some of them. The key is to realize that supply chain is many, many things, many roles. And just because you may start on as a material handler, like one of them on there, doesn't mean that's where you stay. You come in, you learn, you do well. There's opportunities to grow and move forward into more senior roles that pay better, roles that are more interesting in some ways. But you may find that one of these is quite where you want to be. The nice thing is that not only is it you're not stuck if you get into an entry level role, right? You can learn from it and move forward, but it's also that you can move from industry to industry. Because fundamentally, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether it's public or private, manufacturing or wholesale. Fundamentally, supply chain management is the same. The only thing that changes is the variables of which you give importance to, when you're making decisions. But fundamentally, it's the same. Again, these are some examples. There's actually probably closer to 250 careers that are considered supply chain management, but these are just examples of some of them that are out there, just to give you a taste of what some of these things are. And you can see they're broken down into the 4 primary roles that we talked about. And I've seen people that move back and forth. You might be in sourcing and then you might be on something else. It's not unusual depending on where your career path takes you. And that's one of the nice things about this is, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is that the flexibility to be able to move as necessary, either by choice or not, is pretty is a pretty big part about careers in supply chain management. There are future roles, and we'll talk a little bit about it. But some of the things that are coming is technology is a big driver in what we're doing. Days of going and analyzing, taking the day, closing the door and doing forecasts on an Excel spreadsheet for, 6, 7 hours. It's still done. But the thing is, technology is getting to a point where it's being done a lot quicker. Artificial intelligence is going to be able to do that. So you're going to have to understand, what do I want that AI to do for me? How do I want them to calculate it? Do I want them to use exponential smoothing? Do I want to use them, a LIFO, FIFO kind of analysis on what we're doing? Do I want to do cost averaging? Like, there's a whole bunch of things that technology is going to let you do. Circular economy, sustainability is going to be a huge part of supply chain management going forward. And of course, the cybersecurity, side of things. You have to realize that you are a gateway into a company. You deal with companies, you receive information. So supply chain is one of those areas that are at risk that supply chain professionals should be aware of. For people that are trying to introduce ransomware or other things, into your system, you have to be aware of what you're doing so that you don't hurt the organization. So there's going to be roles that are either adjacent or a part of, what you're doing forward. You're going to have to be aware of these things going forward. And that's exciting to a lot of people. This something, I'll just give it a sec if you want to just take a phone and get just to scan it. But for those that are on this that are thinking about joining and coming, you know, looking at careers in supply chain management, we do have our career book. This is available. You'll get it on the slides after, I'm sure. But this is another thing that'll tell you a little bit about different careers and a little bit about what's involved and some of what the possible salaries you can make on it. So like I said, when the one thing about supply chain is it's very flexible. Like you're not pigeonholed in what you're doing. You can move throughout, and from, and this is my example, to be honest. This is how my career took me through. I started in a family business. My father, when he left Revelstoke, started his own family lumberyard. So my teen years, I got started as a material handler. I was the guy that was loading 2x4s and driving a forklift and unloading trucks and all that sort of thing. So I started as a material handler. As I did my time there, then I started working inside where I was working on the order desk. I would deal with customers. I would write up orders. I would help with sales. I would do those sort of things. I left for a while to work in restaurants and that, but when I came back, when I was going to be going back to school, I decided I needed to go back to school. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I needed a job that was going to pay a little better because I had a wife and my first kid was on the way. And I got a job at McDermott Lumber as a special orders buyer. They needed somebody to, handle all the odds and sods. From there, I did a good job on it. I used to help out a little bit because I had extra time with some of the more the bigger stuff. And it turned into where all of a sudden when the contract buyer left, they decided to promote me and I became a contract buyer for all of our projects. So if we sold 40 houses on a First Nations community, I was the one that was purchasing all the materials and coordinating the delivery. If there was a new hospital or a band office or a hotel or something like that we did, I was responsible for buying everything and coordinating all that. So my responsibilities jump up. Then I started taking on responsibility for distribution center where I was buying fill-ins for lumber. I was buying truckloads of lumber along with that sort of thing. So again, responsibility grew. Then I kind of hit a plateau because the guy that was running the department was only a few years older than I was. He was brother of the president at the lumberyard I was working at. So unless he quit or died, I wasn't really going to be going anywhere for a while. And an opportunity came for me to become a materials manager with one of the regional health authorities here in Manitoba. So I went to become a materials manager for 30 hospitals and long-term care facilities for Central Region, which since merged into Southern Health here in Manitoba. From there, I went on to being a purchasing manager. I was recruited to go work for King Optical Group, which was a chain of 75 optical stores across the country. Where it was Shorty's Opticals or Shoppers Opticals here. So I did that for a few years. I've gone to, from there when they got sold and I was out of a job, I went to do camping and outdoor equipment for a little bit. I've done trailers for moving asphalt, gravel, and low beds for moving heavy equipment. I've done noise control systems for power generating stations for Pratt & Whitney and General Electric, as supply chain managers. So, I jumped around. My final stop before coming into this role about 11 or 12 years ago was I was the supply chain manager for Hud Bay Minerals up at in Flin Flon. So the fact is that you can start just because you start one thing is with education and a willingness to learn and a willingness to go try new things, you can move throughout. And not only up in responsibility and salary, but also within between industries. And this is as I said, this is my path. When I talk about the different industries that I was talking about and they all have a supply chain. Fundamentally, it's the same. just what you have to consider when you're making decisions changes. And you learn that pretty quick. But that's one of the things I think why supply chain is one of the greatest careers around, is because you have that flexibility if the worst goes wrong. I've had companies sold out from underneath me twice, and I had to go somewhere else. So it really is great. But it's also key if you're the entrepreneur, if you're a business owner on this call, is that don't get pigeonholed thinking that somebody has to come from your particular industry. Supply chain management's about getting results. You either get the product at the right price or you don't. It's either there in the right quantity or isn't. It's either there at the right time or it isn't. And all these things, you need somebody that can get results, that can manage that process for you and make sure that what you need is where you need it, when you need it, so that you can make that sale and you can make that profit. And the more consistently you can do it, the better you are, because you get a reputation of that's, hey, I can go there and I can give that order and it's going to be here and I know it's going to be what I need, when I need, a right quantity, no ifs, ands, or buts, and it's going to help me succeed. So I'm going to keep doing business. I'm going to vote my dollars and keep doing business there. It's how you get that loyalty. The circular economy is something that you may have heard of. You may not have, but circular economy is not a new concept. Sustainability, circular economy, these things have been around for a while. It's just that now you're starting to find them take root. CSG, the new CSG that you see in publicly traded companies and larger companies where they have to meet um, their guidelines, for corporate social governance. Basically, they're looking. They're going to be looking for companies that are going to be doing business in a sustainable way. They're going to source from, recycled or reusable sources instead of virgin ones. They're going to look at how you deal with your waste. They're going to look at, do you toss things out or do you find a way to extend the use? So basically the whole concepts of circular economy are exactly what it says there. You want to eliminate waste and pollution. You want to keep products in use as long as possible, and you want to help regenerate natural systems. You're starting to see a little bit what government's doing in terms of regulation. The carbon tax is an example of that, where you're going to start seeing governments, whether it be an municipal, provincial, or federal, are going to start to charge for, they're going to charge for pollution in a sense. So if you have something where you're dumping a lot of products in landfills, you're going to pay more. If you're going to using a process that's polluting, you're going to pay more. And so what you have to do, and why it's so critical for companies now, is you have to get ahead of the curve. You can either wait for them to regulate it, where your business is going to be chasing, right? And it's probably going to cost you more time and effort and stress to try to catch up. Or you can start looking at your supply chains now and start making those changes so that when a regulation does come down, you're already compliant or nearly compliant. And it's going to save you money. It's going to help make you more competitive to get into markets. Like, for example, we have the European Union, the CETA free trade agreement. There's a lot of products. If you don't produce them in ways that meet this, you can't ship your products to Europe. They won't let them in. And we have the new renegotiation of CUSMA coming up, where that may be included too. So there's a risk. I don't know. But there's a risk that might be included, where if you don't meet certain guidelines on sustainability and environmental protection, your products may be shut out of a market. So it's important that you understand this and how it fits into your business, because it's going to be one of the major risks that's coming, and your supply chain is the way that you can help manage it, mitigate any of that damage. And again, it's really only about, it's no different than this. It's just, as it says, it's a flow of goods and services, same as what it is now. It's just that what happens is, you want to use renewable materials, excess or unused stuff is put back in the supply chain somehow, energy is somehow used, but basically you want to cycle it back into the supply chain as best you can. And that's probably best illustrated by giving you a quick example. This is, again, a very simple supply chain. This is similar to what I showed you earlier. It shows the need, you design it, it's sourced, procured, manufactured, delivered, customer uses it, then they toss it out. Right? That's generally a linear economy, and it's pretty much the way we operate. What a circular economy does, or a circular supply chain does, is, as you can see, it starts to take a look at where these things, the consumer uses it, instead of disposing of it. What happens is, if you design it better, that it can come down where it uses recyclable parts or more of them, or materials that can be broken down and used again, when it's done, it gets reintroduced back into somewhere. You deliver, comes back into manufacturing. Manufacturing waste gets over here and recycled in. Disposal might be get done, but it goes into sourcing. The whole idea is, whether it's energy, materials, whatever it is, when it's done, if it's a waste product or it's an end of life, it can be broken down and the components can be reprocessed and reintroduced back into a supply chain, instead of going to the environment and pulling out virgin materials out of the earth, whether it be iron ore, whether it be cutting down trees, whatever it happens to be. And that's where, by using materials already in the system, right, good things happen. Number one, you allow the environment to regenerate itself. Two, you're going to have these products closer to hand. So instead of maybe sourcing a virgin material, let's say from Hong Kong, and you put it on a boat to Vancouver, on a train to here, what happens is you go, wait a sec, these materials are neither available at a landfill over in Rosser, Manitoba. If I go get those materials and reprocess them, that carbon footprint is only from here to the perimeter of Winnipeg. I reprocess it here. I save my money, time, and effort, and I'm keeping those materials in the system longer. That's what circular economy is about. And that's something that's coming that I encourage everybody to really take a look at, and understand how they can adjust their supply chains to be more circular, because it will, in the end, maybe not this very moment, but not in the too far future, is going to help you, number one, be more competitive. It's going to open more markets. It's going to reduce your risk. It's going to reduce your costs when governments start to regulate more, because those regulations are coming. There's not have been written yet, but those are coming. And it's something that, as a business owner, you need to be aware of it and be taking steps. How do I mitigate the impact of my business and my bottom line particularly? Future of supply chains. Again, this is, I highlighted some of this, is you're going to see technology, you're going to see digitization, you're going to see more AI, you're going to see more blockchain, you're going to see artificial intelligence. How does that integrate into my organization? Right now, bigger companies are doing it, but if you're an SME, how do I take advantage of this to improve productivity without having to go spend gobs of dollars that, the large companies are doing? Robotics, obviously, machine learning ties into artificial intelligence. Analytics, again, partly with artificial intelligence. Blockchain, it's currently used by a bunch, but about protection of information. Blockchain is going to be one of those tools that, by using it, you're going to be able to protect your data from people with ransomwares and those things, because the data isn't stored on your server, it's stored over many. And that helps protect you. And circular economy, as I talked about. So these are all things that are coming, and you're going to have to adjust as best you can, depending on what your industry is and where your industry is on that life cycle of some of these things. Some industries are further ahead than others, but the fact is, early adopters are going to have an advantage. And the sooner you can say, hey, I can pull a piece of this and I can use it to make myself part of that faster, quicker, less expensive, more reliable kind of supplier to somebody, to your market, you have an advantage to have a competitive advantage that allows you to grow faster and more successfully. Something about training again, and this is for anybody that's either thinking about getting into it that's on the call, but business owners, if you're there and you're looking at this could be for you or your staff, it doesn't matter. But the key is understanding. As I said, it's not that people can't do it. It's just that there's techniques that can help you do things better. And training helps you get that, because I said it's a results business. And the better people have the tools and the knowledge, the better they can apply them and get better results for your organization. We have a few different programs. We have a supply chain management professional, SCMP. It's a professional designation. It's the most recognized and widely held in the country. We have a diploma program, which is a technical program that's ideal for probably 80% of supply chain roles that are out there that help make them better at what they do and help start putting dollars into your pocket if you're an entrepreneur. CITT is another great designation. It's primarily focused on transportation, but it's a great organization with a really good credential. And if you happen to be a public, we do have a healthcare certificate if you have somebody here that's on the healthcare side of things as well. So these are some programs that we're always happy to talk about it. You can go on the QR code, or you can grab it now, or you can grab it when you get the presentations. But these are some different ways that we provide support that can help either yourself or the people responsible for this function in your organization be more effective, be more productive, help make your organization more competitive, be more profitable, more resilient for those unexpected changes, so that you can kind of ride through them a little bit easier, than just all of a sudden I'm fighting fires all the time. As I said, supply chain management, if you get to world-class supply chain management, it's about consistency and predictability. Is that you can't plan. It's very hard to do a business plan and to find growth if your supply chain isn't predictable and consistent. You need to have, someone manage that so that you can achieve those things that allow you to get the other things in your growth in sales, your growth in market share, and those sort of things. Because if you can't deliver on your promise, you're not going to be successful. And supply chain is how you deliver on that promise to your customers, whether you work for somebody or you're the principal. So I hope that this helps. Our contact information's here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to jump in, and I'm more than happy to try to answer as many questions as we can.
Awesome, Rick. Great presentation. So yeah, we'll open up for questions. So if you have any question, you can put in the chat, or you can unmute, and Rick will be happy to answer that.
Come on, guys. I wasn't that good. Somebody's got to have some question.
We have one question in the chat here. Thank you for sharing great info. Please guide me the difference between SCMP and CCLP, which was more worth in Manitoba.
Well, it depends on kind of where you want to go. The CCLP from CITT, if you like transportation, if getting in, if you like being around trucks or movement of goods, whether it be just the movement of goods, if you're in route planning or any of those things, I really recommend going the CITT route. There are a few different credentials, and each is good at certain things. CITT does a great job of transportation. We cover transportation as CMP as well. The only difference is they go into it in much more depth because it's the focus of their organization. So they cover everything generally, but more a focus on transportation. Whereas CMP, we cover it, just not to the same depth, because what we're focused on is we're trying to train people in SCMP to be in the big chair, to be that VP or that director or that supply chain manager that sets the supply chain strategy for an organization, that manages all those functions: sourcing, procurement, transportation, and warehousing. So that's, kind of the big difference. It really depends on what it is what aspect of supply chain really interests you. If you like being, broad strokes, we're managing all aspects of it, I'd recommend our credential. If you like the idea of being really focusing on managing, the transportation function very effectively, I would tell people to go CITT. Just like if somebody's looking at production control or inventory management, I tell them to go see ASCM, because that's where they really focus on more so. Or if I was looking at freight forwarding, I'd say, hey, look, CFA is a great way to go. So it really depends. In Manitoba, I will tell you that I have more designation holders than CITT has members in Manitoba. So I think that gives a little bit of an idea of how the business community's looked at it, but that's in no way saying that it's a bad credential and you shouldn't do it. It really depends on what it is that you want to do as a career. Sorry. see here, I see, yep, there is data. Yes, we have on our Supply Chain Manitoba website. There is data on LMI and information on that. You'll find that some of that career book, we have some in there as well. But there is data on jobs, different careers in that on Supply Chain Manitoba. And there's also information on where some of the high demand opportunities are to help you get started. I see James here. Any tips to share? Are you balancing low cost versus quality and reliability? Well, you know what? The biggest thing is it all depends on what your company. Like you can try to balance cost versus quality, but it's generally subjective and it takes a lot of analysis. James, the biggest thing is what's the corporate strategy? Like for example, when I was at the optical company, actually, no, I'm going to go take a step back. I'm going to go say when I was with Arnie's and we were building trailers, we did low beds and heavy equipment, like low beds for moving heavy equipment and asphalt and gravel trailers. And Arnie's had a reputation for having the best quality trailer on the market. And that reputation allowed us to get a premium for our trailers. So we were able to charge more, considerably more, because people were willing to pay the price to get a quality trailer. So when you have to look at the business when you answer that question is what is the corporate strategy and what is the focus of the business? So when I was there, I could go and I could go make a name for myself and go buy, say, the cheapest possible tail light. And I could sit there, hey, look at all the money I saved you. But the problem is it wasn't consistent with the strategy that we wanted to build the best quality trailer in the market. So what you have to do is I had to take a look at it and I had to balance what does that quality represent? And then look at the options that meet that standard, not just price. And then I would pay more for it, but I would be paying to get a quality that was consistent with what the brand and the promise we were making to our customers. So it really, you have to look at what is the company goal, what do they want, and make sure when you're looking at your supply chain strategy and balancing like you're talking about, make sure it's consistent with what you want. If the company wants quality, then you're gonna have to pay for some quality. It doesn't mean you can't negotiate and keep the price down as best you can, but the key is to make sure you're supporting the corporate strategy first. If it's quality, then I should be getting quality and you're going to pay. If it's about low cost, then I'm after low cost. If it's about flexibility and speed, then I'm making sure my suppliers and what I'm doing fits that. So the tip is make sure that you're not going to hey, I'm going to go cut costs because that's my job. No, your job is to support the corporate strategy and make sure what you're doing there is consistent with that. I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to either give me a call or throw another question in the chat. I see my background, freight forwarding, outsourcing, and procurement are very limited. That might be a bit of a longer call that I suggest maybe give me a call. But the key is there's a book called What Color is Your Parachute? And I usually recommend for people that are looking for a career to get the book. If you have a library card, you can get it from the library. If you want to buy it, it's about $30 at Indigo, as I recall. It's a great book for people that are looking for careers. And the thing is, there are opportunities. Not everything is always advertised. A lot of them are, people are looking at it, or it's from that gray market where they're looking for somebody, but they haven't advertised it. And what you need to do is you have to find a way to get yourself in front of people that can hire you. And if you want to be in freight forwarding or you want to be in transportation side, then you got to make sure you're going to places where these people are, at CITT meeting or, different events, conferences, and that. And you need to understand what your pitch is. What's your 30-second elevator speech? How are you going to help them solve the problem they have? How are you going to help them make more money? And I'd be happy to explain that because I really can't do it here in a couple of minutes. But you need to do some homework. A lot of people in supply chain, they think just because they got experience or have a degree that if I put it out there, somehow it's going to give me a job. They don't realize how competitive it is, and the fact that now you have remote learning, you're not just competing with people that are here, you're competing with people from around the world. In some cases, you have to find a way to differentiate yourself. You have to develop a marketing plan for you. You're the product, right? Marketing plan is product, place, price, and promotion, right? And you need to figure out is the promotion is how you're going to sell yourself better And it's kind of awkward. It's tough for people to get their head around, but it's a huge difference. You have to understand the value you bring, and you have to put yourself in front of people, that can hire you. But give me a call here at the office. I'm happy to spend a little more time, even come in for a coffee if you want. We'll talk about it. What else do we have here? And I plug my business. I run away. It obsesses me. Well, that's really not a question about plugging a business. That's not really for me to answer. That's WTC to answer that one. Well, there's again, as newcomers, it's just kind of the same example. Give me a call. I'm happy to talk about it. But sometimes, what I've seen a lot of people do when they're newcomers, and especially if their experience is from outside of Canada, which it's not right, but it doesn't always get recognized the way it should, is I usually talk to people is a good place to start is community centers, community groups, or charities. The one thing that they don't often have is they never have enough money. And and they do purchase things and that. So being on there where you can maybe volunteer and you can go help take control of that and help maximize, stretch those dollars and help them get better results. One is something you can talk about in an interview. It allows you to say, yeah, we had this problem. Here's what we did. And here's the result for a charity in Canada. It gives you references where all of a sudden somebody, yeah, you know what? They call, yeah, this person that came in, they helped us with this. Right? The people you're working with or other partners might notice you as well. So as newcomers, it doesn't have to be necessarily a job if you can't find one. You can go start by volunteering and moving from there. It's about creating a bigger network where people know about you. Like Angel might be the best supply chain person I've ever met, but if I've never heard of them, that doesn't matter. You have to find ways to, get out and get known. And just applying online isn't going to help you out there. But again, feel free to give me a call. Happy to chat a little more in detail. Studying you can. We have something I'm seeing here with the PGD. Yeah. So basically, if you're studying something, you can. We have something called RPO, which is a review of prior learning. So there is an aspect. If you have prior education in supply chain, even experience, you can apply through RPL where you could submit and get exemptions in our program. So yes, there is a pathway. If you come onto the website, you look under pathways to the SCMP on the Supply Chain Canada site, you'll find RPL and it'll give you more information. If you have trouble finding it, just give us a call and we'll make sure we get you a link. I'm just seeing, I'm not seeing some other, thanks for sharing information, everybody. But, SCMP. Well, yeah, Jamie, the SCMP, it's designed to be done part-time for people generally working. So it's designed to be done over 3 years on a part-time basis. There are 14 modules and workshops. 4 of those modules are 13 weeks in length. 4 of them are 7 weeks. There are 6 workshops. 5 of them are 2 days. 1 of them is 4 days broken out over 2 weeks. There's a work experience requirement, progressive work experience that candidates need to meet. There is a leadership residency, and there's a final exam. Overall, the cost over 3 years is around $15,000, not counting the membership that's required to be in that program. But one thing that's nice about the SCMP is people go, wow, that's a lot of money over 3 years. But what they don't realize is that salary surveys have shown that people with the SCMP generally make somewhere around $22,000 more than somebody who doesn't have one in a similar role. It will make you more money. It'll also open more doors for you as employers that are looking for somebody who's either in the program or has completed the program as well. I saw, what did I see here from experience? Yeah, this, I see the other one here. Eddie Inca, I'm not sure which, so I apologize. I'm not sure if I get your first name there. But yes, that's something that would be, as I said, what you're talking about there would be something that you may want to look, if you're looking at the designation program, you might want to look at RPL. And if you want, you can give me a call. I'm happy to talk about how you can take this and, about how do you package this up to make it a little more presentable. to potential employers. So I hope that helps. As I said, our numbers on there, you'll see it on the thing. I'm sure that Ellis can maybe throw it in the chat again real quick, our office number and our email. But feel free to give us a call. We're always happy to talk to people and help them move forward, whether it's a business trying to become more efficient and profitable, or whether it's somebody who's working in the field that wants to become more marketable and find new opportunities. But I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to speaking to anybody that gives us a call.
Perfect. Well, good questions. Yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up here. I just put in the chat a couple events and webinar session that's coming up. So October 10th, Barcode and Beyond, getting your product to global market. That will be presented by GSC1 Canada. And then we have October 16th, WTC Talks at Kilter Brewing from 4 to 6 p.m. So Rick, Fort Garry Fire Truck, the CEO, will be presenting, and then Gary, CEO of Big Deal Custom Cases. And then we also have on October 30th, Unlocking Values, integrating circularity into your supply chain. And again, they are in partnership with Supply Chain Manitoba. So thanks everyone for tuning in.
Actually, if I can I interject? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw something in. If somebody wants to, I'm throwing a link in. We are, if I can make a plug, we have what's called a member night tomorrow night. I just put a link in the chat, and it's just back to us talking about, it's an opportunity to maybe get out and meet other supply chain professionals here. There's no cost to it. You only have to pay for whatever you're drinking, but we'll have some food there, and there's no cost to attend. So it's might be an opportunity for some of you that came in there if you want to come and meet some others and ask some questions and maybe get some answers. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eric.
No worries. Perfect. And and thank you, Ellis, for plugging the email address and the phone number. So again, if you guys have any question, you guys can reach out to Rick, or you guys can just contact them, and you can also contact me for more information. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and I hope you guys have a good afternoon.